everybody, welcome to Virtual MOSI. Today I'm going to talk about Hedy Lamarr, a little bit about cryptography and her inventions that even today we use, 50, 60 years later. So first off, I have a little basic cipher here. It was in our teaser. This is what you need to translate. That is the key. So I'm going to see if any of you guys can translate this. Let me know what this says while I talk to you and tell you about cryptography. Now, cryptography could be something very basic. You could have A as substitute as a 1, B as a 2, C as a 3, and so on. However, sometimes a little camera problems. Sometimes you might need to make it harder because that's something very easy to translate. Now, this is the pig pen cipher. It was used all the way back in the 1500s and was used for many, many years. Cryptography started around 830, so 1200 years ago. People were like, I need a way to send secure information because I want my information secure. If I'm on my phone looking at my banking info, I don't want some random person next to me knowing it. I want that information secure. So, cryptography could be something very basic. You could start using addition, multiplication, or even whole formulas in there to encode something. But some of the things you need to learn are what language are you trying to encode it to or decode it to. Because if I'm trying to decode something to English, that's going to be very different than if I try to decode something into Greek. They have a completely different alphabet than we do. Knowing information about the language that you're decoding to is helpful. Like in English, the most common language or the most common letter in any given sample is going to be the letter E. So if you see something repeating, probably going to be the letter E. The most common letter pair is a TH. We also know in English, we rarely have more than 2 consonants in a row before a vowel. Also, if there's ever a single letter, which is a single word, it's going to be an A or an I. Because you're not just going to have a word that's an S. That doesn't exist. It's going to be an I or an A. So these are some of the important things you need to know when you are trying to decode a message. Now, you can go home and make up all sorts of encryptions and send secret messages to people. And those are just about some of the basic ones. So I'm going to go ahead and decode this for you. This actually says science is fun. I'm just adding an exclamation point. And it is. It's a lot of fun. But that's what it means. You just take in each of these individual, and whether there's a dot or not, and you decode it. It's a very basic one that looks a lot harder than it is. So now I'm going to talk to you about how other times that we've used in our nation's security, we've had to have things, cryptography. One of the biggest that people know about is during World War II with Nazi Germany and their Enigma machine. It looked like a typewriter, and it had rotating dials inside. And every time I would hit a letter, it would change. But that meant that even when I hit the letter A, each time, it would be something else, because that dial rotated over and over. Now, this was a big deal, and most of the Enigma machines had 3 rotors. Some had up to 5, but the ones that had 3, I'm going to show you how many possibilities and why it was so hard for everyone to decode. So one Enigma machine with just 3 rotors had That many possibilities. That's a lot of zeros. Now, some very smart people figured this out at Bletchley Park in England, and it was broken in January of 1940 when they finally figured it out. But that's a lot of options that you can use to come up with. One of the ways that the U.S. during World War I and World War II did code breaking and managed to encrypt a lot of our info on the battlefield was with the Navajo Native American code talkers. The Navajo language is a very complex language. It has a very complex grammar and syntax. It's also rarely written down. At the time of World War II, there were less than 30 non-native speakers, which meant that most people in the world had never heard of this language before. So they could send Native Americans into war on either side, and they could communicate, and people didn't know what they were talking about. They didn't just use the Navajo language. They used Comanche, Hopi, and a whole bunch of other ones. But that was one of the largest people that they used, that language. And it's a very complex language to use. Now, how does this all relate to our inventor and scientist, Hedy Lamarr? So Hedy Lamarr was a beautiful Austrian actress born in Austria in 1914. She became an actress at 18, starred in some films. Her first marriage was to an Austrian ammunitions manufacturer. He was the largest manufacturer. This is during World War II. She would go with him to his business meetings in Nazi Germany and Italy and meet with high party people and other scientists and inventors. And that created her love for inventing. Now, she was a Jewish woman. She knew what was coming, so she very smartly managed to flee Europe. She ended up in Hollywood and became an actress there. She was very successful. However, she didn't want to just be an actress during a world war. This was affecting everyone on this planet. She goes, I'm very smart. I have all this information from going to these top secret meetings with my ex-husband. I could use this. So she went to D.C. and tried to join the National Inventors Council. They were like, no, you're a woman and you're not in the military. And you're really beautiful and famous. So instead, we're going to send you and have you raise money for the war. So she's like, okay, fine. She wasn't happy about it. But she went and held rallies. And over the space of 10 days, she managed to raise $25 million, which in today's money is over $350 million, which meant in 10 days, each day she raised $35 million. Can you imagine raising that much money for a cause every day? She wasn't content with just raising money for the war, so she continued to work on home inventions. She was never properly taught or schooled about this. She was just fooled around at home. She helped streamline some aviation. Some airplanes used to be very boxy and square, and she thought that they should look more like birds or fish, which are very sleek. So she did that with a famous tycoon, Howard Hughes. She also helped improve the traffic light. But one of the things that she learned about was that a lot of our torpedoes that we would use during the war, which we used torpedoes back then like we use missiles now, but a lot of torpedoes could be jammed or sent off course. She's like, this is not a good thing. So with her friend, who was a piano composer, they decided, instead of sending all the information across one frequency, because all you have to do is jam it right there, and it's done. It's over. Instead, they took the 88 keys of a piano, set the sequence to songs, and said if we take the information and we spread it out all over the frequencies, it's less likely to get jammed or thrown off. And you would have to know the song. It was set to a piano. Now, the Navy, again, said, you're a woman, you're not in the military, we're not going to use it. But they kept it in their files. And during the they had, Hedy Lamarr and her friend had actually created a device, patented it and everything. Finally, in 1962, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, they started to use this. They had converted it at that point to using electric signals, but they used her same principle of spreading the information about the frequencies. Now, how does this all end up with stuff we use today? Well, if you've ever sat next to someone and listened to your Bluetooth earbuds or used your Wi-Fi computer next to someone else using Wi-Fi, your signals don't get crossed. So what happens is my information is like this. Someone else's information goes like that. Another person's like that. And so on. And that spreads all the information out over a whole range of frequencies, and it fills in the gaps. This is stuff used today. Computers, cell phones, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, all things that we use today. So her invention that was initially dismissed is still used today, the concept, 60 years later. She was finally awarded an award for her ingenuity in 1997. She sadly died at the age of 85 in 2000. However, she never gave up inventing, kept doing things her whole life. So what do you think you could invent? Have you ever looked at something and said, there's got to be an easier way to do this? There has to be a better way? Everyone has. Maybe you can come up with something and let us know, or come up with something, patent it, and show it off. So next time, we're going to talk about insects. And one thing for you to try to figure out is how many species of insects are there? Bye.